want to sit if you want.
You sit next to her wife?
Whatever you want.
Ron should get a seat too. So.
Ron have a seat. Why don't we all gather together? What? What do you want, Rabbi? 11? 11? 11 or that's it? No, for now. You want to lower it?
I was thinking do the pay first and lower you do the pay then.
So that's all. You want to lower the Casper right away?
We'll see. We have to see. Let's see. So they might want it
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the funeral service. For those that have a cell phone and pager, if you could turn it to the silent mode. Officiating is Rabbi Gross, and he's going to begin the service with hearing of the Kriya.
Gerald. Turn around to some time.
So no Kriya for the breakfast. So I'm going to get started. It's a quality shirt. You don't take the shirt, Rabbi. We got to say what that is. Rip. There you go.
Oh, the shirt also?
The shirt? No. Is it ribbon?
It's hard.
Diane? MS.
We are here to pay our final respects to David Kost, David Meir ben Yosef, father of Jeff Kost and Joel Kost, loving father-in-law, loving grandfather of numerous grandchildren. In Judaism, we have this term Seva Tova. Seva Tova means a good old age. That for a person to leave this world with Seva Tova is a special privilege. David Kost was born and raised in Chicago, born some 95 years ago, which makes him one of our greatest generation. Fought in World War II, wounded at the Battle of the Bulge. And I can tell you, speaking personally as a child of Holocaust survivors with a mother who was liberated by American GIs, that we all owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to every soldier who fought for the American Army in World War II. He was loved by all. Everyone took pleasure in being with him. And one of the things that the Talmud teaches us is that if you want to know whether a person is a good person, you take a look at what do people have to say about him, and you know what God thinks about him. Kol sheruach habrios nocha himenu. Anyone who the spirit of people take pleasure in him, God's spirit takes pleasure in him as well. Because You can fool some of the people all the time and all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And if all the people love somebody, then he's someone who's beloved by God as well. So he had that Seva Tova, longevity, the longevity that we all would like to be privileged to experience. And everybody wonders, what is the secret? What's the secret to longevity? What's the secret to a good life? I think we could say it's what we already have said, that he's someone who's beloved by everybody, and he loved everybody else in return. He loved making people happy, I'm told. He loved making people laugh. And we are taught that God has a special feeling towards, he looks kindly upon people who make other people happy and who make other people laugh. Because when you make other people laugh, you make them feel good about themselves, and that's important to God. He had a beautiful relationship with his family, beautiful relationship with his children who he didn't always necessarily agree with, didn't always necessarily approve of their path in life, but he supported them. And that's something that's such a rare quality in our day and age, of being able to say somebody else has a different path, and even if it's one of my children, I'm going to support him. As we said, he did raise a beautiful family. We're now going to hear from some of the members of his family, from his children. Tehei Nishmas Tzur B'Tzur HaChaim.
I'm his son, Jeff, but first I want to also acknowledge he was devoted and loving father to Ruth and her husband, Ron. And Ruth, 1 year ago, is going to have my dad and Ruth will have the same yahrzeit. 1 year ago, she passed, and may her memory be a blessing. So, the great sage Hillel stated, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? And only being myself, for myself, what am I? My dad stood for himself in his own ways, but I want to concentrate on the second part of what Hillel said. For many people, their religious observances and how they observe are dependent on the home they grew up in. However, no matter how observant you are, what I believe is most relevant about a man is who that man is and what defines him. What is important about a man in ethics of our fathers is his ethics and morality. What defines my dad, along with his kindness, easy and accepting disposition, his ideas of fairness for all, his wit and sense of humor, was his selflessness, which gets to the heart of Hillel's statement, and only being for myself, what am I? My dad was more concerned with the needs and wishes of others rather than his own. There are not many people that can truly say this like I can about my dad, in him being a selfless person. I want to focus on three aspects of his life to highlight this. His service in World War II, his marriage to my mom Zelda, and his work ethic. My dad selflessly enlisted in the Army at the age of 18 and went into battle at age 19 in the Battle of the Bulge. My dad was short in stature, which got him pushed ahead in the lines by the rest of the soldiers. Because of his short legs, he would slow up the marches when they had to go on in training. So, however, he didn't realize, little did he know at the time, that being short would save his life. His arms were too short to be a rifleman, so he was a mortarman stationed behind the rifleman. Of 23 in his group, 15 of his fellow servicemen, all riflemen in front of him, were either killed or maimed. My dad was hit by shrapnel and saw the worst of war in his 2 combat duties in the European theater. The experience shaped him for life. He was not a fan of General Patton or anybody that proved their honor by sacrificing others. After surviving the war, he had a whatever approach about much of life, except it did not stop him from what was important to him, having a family and providing for it. He was adamant about his children and grandchildren not having to experience going to war, and thought any president that kept the younger generation out of war was doing his job successfully. When he came back from war, he got his degree in economics from Roosevelt University. My dad always preferred a great deal of knowledge upon the economy, politics, and the markets that he discussed with us subtly, with great wit and humor. These traits, along with his kindness, is what people talk about when they reminisce about my dad. Just today, as we pulled up, a worker in the cemetery came up to my brother and I and said, I don't want to be disrespectful or anything, but I just had to tell you, when he saw, he was working on the grave, that I worked for your dad 50 years ago at the Pit and Pub restaurant here in Arlington Heights. And I remember things he taught me from that day, about flipping burgers. I can still do a pretty good job and just serve people. And he just had a big smile on his face and just kind words, and I really appreciated that. And another side note on his humor and quick wit, no matter the circumstances. He was lying in his hospital bed 2 days ago, and before he passed, and he was very uncommunicative and was having trouble moving, and the doctor came in and asked him, and I don't think she was expecting any response at all, said, can you tell me your name? And he just, like in a straight face, in a low voice, said, he answered, do you prefer my name in any particular order? And we both looked, the doctor looked at me and I looked at her, and we just both had a laugh, and he had a little smirk on his face, just always thinking and coming up with one-liners. I wish I could remember them as much, but he always was thinking and wanted to put a smile on someone's face. And I think that in the capsule right there at the end of his life, he was still trying to make things easy for other people. But let's see. The doctor, anyways, and that's something my friends who we grew up with in Skokie, and my children, Brian, Adam, and Andrew, that they remember so fondly of my dad, of just bringing to a smile. But I'm getting a little off topic. I want to talk about his most selfless act of all. When a man and a woman decide to marry, they take on a lot of known and unknown issues with their new partner. My dad met my mom, Zelda, knowing, besides what a wonderful and caring woman she was, said she came as a person with 2.5 years as a grieving widow, a 3-year-old daughter, my sister Ruth of blessed memory, and myself, a bundle of joy at 5 years old, and my sister was 3. My dad fell in love with my mom and gave Ruth and I unconditional love when he married my mom in October of 1962. He took a broken family, adopted Ruth and I, and brought love, care, dependability, and stability to our family. Growing up in Skokie, my only worries were when to leave the park or a friend's home on my bike so I would be home in time for dinner. Who knows what could have been if my dad did not act so selflessly in finding love. My dad was also selfless in the type of home that we grew up in. He was very culturally Jewish, but not observant in most ways. But he was very supportive of my mom being Shomer Shabbos and having a kosher home. When Gerald was born in 1964, I don't think he anticipated having an observant son like him, but as always, he was very supportive, accepting, and happy, and loving, and just being a dad. My dad taught me about friendships, respecting others, being kind, and to have a sense of humor. But what I also clearly witnessed was a work ethic that he exhibited for all his working days. Due to the unrest in the late 60s, he and his brothers Harold and Paul, both of blessed memory, had to give up their grocery store and laundrettes they owned on the west side of Chicago. So my dad had to reinvent himself, starting by working 2 jobs as a messenger and as a manager at a Barnaby's to help provide for his family. At Barnaby's, which we happened to, actually he worked at the one on the on Tui, and he also passed the Barnaby's here. Thank you. And but I'm regressing again here. At Barnaby's, he learned the restaurant business. He opened the Pit and Pub restaurant in Arlington Heights in 1969, working crazy hours, especially on the weekends, leaving at 8 to 9 in the morning, coming back at 3 in the morning. But my dad ran the restaurant successfully and brought novice ideas to the northwest suburbs. They were the first pizza place to bring pan and stuffed pizza to the northwest suburbs, as well as installing the first electronic bar with measured alcohol drinks, to the chagrin of some of the customers who didn't like that measured 1.5 fingers versus 3 by the heavy pour of the bartenders. However, what set the Pit and Pub apart from the others was the entertainment factor inside. There was a big screen projector for movie night, fight night, or short films like The Little Rascals. But it was the pinball games and other gaming devices that brought the families in along with the pizza. My dad said the games paid for 3 college educations. I saw how hard my dad worked to make a successful business to provide for his kids. Seeing it was invaluable to me as I went to school and then into the work arena. So I was almost done. I was actually done writing this, and then I realized I didn't mention a thing about my dad being basically blind for the last 15 years, especially the last time. Never complained. Never said, why me? It was always whatever, and I'm fine with what I have. I always said, could I do anything else? Bring it, do you want a different place to live? He was comfortable where he was. He knew his surroundings and got along. The one thing that he said he missed was being able to see his grandchildren's faces and never getting to seeing his great-grandchildren's faces over the last few years. That really hurt him. So, in closing, what I want to say about my dad is a big thank you for a priceless upbringing. Thank you for being Uncle Duddy and Uncle Dave to many. Thank you for loving Mom, Ruth, Gerald, and making us a family. Thank you for loving my wife, Jamie, and Ruth's husband, Ron. Thank you for being a loving Zadie to my sons, Brian, Adam, and Andrew, Ruth's children, Heather and Stevie, and all of Gerald's children and grandchildren. I actually believe having so many grandchildren and grandchildren from Gerald kept my dad pretty sharp for so long. And Dad, I want to say, Dad, thanks for being you. Thanks for being selfless. I will try to be more like you going forward. Love you, and love from Jamie, Brian, Adam, Andrew, Ron, Heather, and Stevie. Rest at ease. Enjoy being with your family that is up in heaven waiting for you. And please be a guiding force for us here. May your neshama, may your soul reach the highest pinnacle possible, and may your memory be a blessing for all.
Thank you, Jeff. That was special. Dad, we already miss you. We have to acknowledge how fortunate we were that we had Dad for so long, and he had his mind and he was with it. And during this COVID time, how we were so fortunate to have a better relationship, that he was blind, but the place he was living at acknowledged that he needed more care. They allowed Jeff and I to go visit on a regular basis. And the place was shut down. There was no one else to talk to. So he talked to family, me and Jeff. And it was a special year where I feel, we were able to bond closer with Dad in this past year, taking care of him. And we have to be grateful for that. Dad was a very stable force in our life. I don't know if it's the older generation, but the highs weren't too high, the lows weren't too low. It was more just living without the drama. And he's the rock and stable in my life, and for our family, we really benefited tremendously. When we talk about politics occasionally, we were absolute polar opposites, but it didn't matter. We loved and respected each other. The few times we talked, the conversation would end, where did I go wrong? It was like, as Jeff said, he was always very accepting and loving. Growing up, he was there for baseball games, helping with homework. Thanks. I thought this would be easy. He would take on some vacation. He would drive to Florida. He would get out at the gas stop, and Mom would start laughing. Look, Dad's trying to walk after driving for 17 hours. Laughing. It was a happy home. They laughed. They laughed so much together. My dad's sense of humor was, I think, it was off the charts. Ruth, of blessed memory, told me recently he was with Dad and where he was living, and they were selling the chairs and tables. And it was $2 for the chair. My dad asked, is that with or without the payment plan? He loved his grandchildren. He used to call them his portfolio. The grandkids loved spending time with him. When they were younger, he would give them pizzas, bagels, cut up fruit and cartoons, and keep them entertained for hours. I'm fortunate to be your son. You're a blessing, Dad. Thank you for everything. May the family only know of happy occasions in the future. Thank you.
Before we commence with the burial, we'll recite a chapter of Tehillim, Perk of Tehillim, Psalm 23. Shil Amalos Esanai Elohari Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'im Adonai Yosei Shemayim V'Aretz Ayitei Lamad Raglacha Yinim Shemrecha Hinei Elohinim Leishan Shemei Yisrael Adonai Shemrecha Adonai Tzachai Yad Yimenecha Yom Hashem Asher Keka V'Yach Balayla Adonai Yishmochim B'Kara Yishmeres Nafshecha Adonai Yishmez Hitzcha V'Yacham Ya'atav Ad Elam. A Psalm of David, Hashem is my shepherd, I shall not lack. In lush meadows he lays me down, beside tranquil waters he leads me. He restores my soul, he leads me on paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley overshadowed by death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my tormentors. You anointed my head with oil, and my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and may I dwell in the house of Hashem for long days.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a couple of moments, the cemetery workers will place some earth onto the ground. For those who want to participate in the burial, they may do so either from the mound of earth or from these buckets. It's customary to place a couple of measures of earth into the grave and not hand the shovel from person to person, just place the shovel back in the mound. For those that want, we're still in COVID times, if you want to use gloves when you use the shovels, you can, or you can use your bare hands. It's up to you. Yeah.
I should say that not only did my dad have a cemetery worker here, also had the CFO of Dell Computers was working at the
grandkids love eventually.
I'll talk to you later. I'll talk to you about it. Stay in the house. We'll talk about it. Whatever you feel. It's customary, and he doesn't have whatever you feel better.
You got a tree branch right above your head.
I need that paragraph kill wrap. Just some paragraph.
Two comments. The rabbi has.
See the kid in here. It's after it has your brother's Hebrew.
That's a good question.
start this? Who start this? Take your mask off, right?
If any of the men would like to participate in, or even take a second turn for the tournament, that would be a big mitzvah.
It's working out good. Good. You got it. Maybe so.
The rabbis. How did they get away with that?
You do it without that.
Just drive a bus. Some people do complicated. They're making more than see, like on the bench, you don't get to these bus drivers making unless you can make them just drive. Sit next to them.
So-and-so really didn't look any good.
Just keep it tight.
Or someone looked good. He's had 6 sons. Yeah, we did see him. I saw him more than ever.
I've never been, no.
Already given
In Jerusalem, it's like, which way? Is Jerusalem? And like laws are really like weird, but it could be interesting. And she's like, oh yeah, this is it's like, I really want to go back and spend time with kibbutz because it's more like, we want to do less and more fun. It's nice and cold and it's like, just go. Take apples and eat. The food was good. I just showed it. It's really interesting to get into like maybe food and vibes. Really cool. Trees, like, when I was in the store, I was young and had like this juice. It's really good. They really people actually care about use their minds. It's really interesting. Like, change everything.
Everyone is asked to rise for the Kamole, followed by Kaddish. Ya mol rachamim shechein b'amraimim mamtzei menucha nachayna karvi ashchina b'ma'alois kedoshim etzayrim kezahari ki amazirim es nishmas David Meir ben Yosef shehalach alamoy b'avur shenachnu mispalim ba'ad haskaras nishmasoi b'gan eidetem menuchasoi lachein b'rachamim yesterei b'seisik nafav le'lamim v'tzror b'tzor achayim es nishmasoi Adonai hu nachalasoi v'yinrach b'shalom mamash kavoi v'neimar Amen.
Amen. Brichom.
Amen.
Yehei Shlom Rabbanim Shemaya, B'chaim Aleinu V'Yakol Yisrael V'Imru Amen.
Amen.
Yaseh Shalom V'Rama, Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Yakol Yisrael V'Imru Amen.
Amen. Sure enough.
This concludes the service.